Chapter 1 of Mag and Margaret, a Story for Girls. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Mag and Margaret, a Story for Girls, by Pansy. Chapter 1 Merry Christmas to Mag. Tell Mag to run with this letter to the post box right away. Mag, I want the sitting room dusted and put in order immediately. It is nearly time for Mr. Vance to call. Mag, just take a stitch in this glove for me in about a second. That is all the time I have to spare. I want Mag to come and clear out my closet shelf so I can put those boxes in as soon as possible. Mrs. Perkins, can Mag run to the corner for some lemons right away? Norah is waiting for them. The subject of all these calls that needed instant attention was a girl of 13, Mag Jessup, little maid of all work in the boarding house of Mrs. Perkins. There was a time in her life when she was called Margaret. I think her mother used that name when she first looked at her. Once, when she was a little bit of a girl, and went to a free kindergarten for a few weeks, the sweet-faced teacher called her Maggie. But that was ever so long ago. Centuries ago, the 13-year-old girl thought. For years and years she had been called Mag. So long, indeed, that she had almost forgotten the other names. Mag Jessup was an orphan. Her mother had died when she was a wee girl, too young to remember her. The father had been killed when she was 5 years old, and the family had scattered. Mag's sister Susan, only 16 months younger than herself, had been adopted by a family whom Mag did not know even by name, and taken "away off." Mag herself was taken charge of by an aunt who had lived only 2 or 3 years after that time, and then there had come a new aunt who had many children of her own to look after, and not much money to do it with, and when the uncle died, what more natural than that Mag, who was then 10 years old, should have to earn her own living? It was about that time that Mrs. Perkins was looking for a little girl to answer her door bell and run of errands, and it was said by the aunt, who was really not an aunt at all, that here was just the place for Mag. So to Mrs. Perkins she went. In the spring, when the Perkins family went to the country, taking their boarding house with them, or at least keeping boarders there, Mag went along to pick berries, and shell peas, and do 100 other things for her board and clothes. When she returned to the city, she found that the aunt, with her family, had moved away. It came to pass, then, that the only home Mag Jessup had was in Mrs. Perkins's boarding house. As for her duties, one can get some idea of them by reading over again the paragraphs with which this story began. She was to answer the doorbell, rub the silver, wash the knives and forks, set the tables, assist in waiting on one of them, keep the halls in order, dust and arrange the sitting room, help the chambermaid with the beds and rooms, and be at the call of every boarder in the house to run of errands, sew on buttons, mend rips, and do anything else in the world that might be wanted. Can not you imagine that Mag lived a very busy and useful life? As for what she knew, she could read and write. She could not quite remember how she learned. She knew a little of the multiplication table, and something about addition. She had learned a little geography during the one winter in which she went to the public school. The second winter, when she was nearly 10, there had been scarlet fever in or about her aunt's home during the entire season, and she had not been allowed to go to school. Since she had begun to earn her own living, of course school was out of the question. There had been some talk of sending her during the winter months, and sometimes Mrs. Perkins looked at her in a troubled sort of way, and said, "Just as soon as we get all the extras done, and are settled down for the winter, that child shall go to school." But never yet had the "extras" been all done. Mag herself had given up hope that they ever would be, and was earning her board and clothes as faithfully as she knew how. Her clothes were not many, and did not cost a great deal. She could not remember ever to have had any garment bought new for her in all her long life. Of course it had been out of the question in her aunt's family, where there were many children to think about. and at Mrs. Perkins's there was Miss Kate, who was 2 years older than herself, and a good deal larger, and who grew rapidly and attended a good school. Of course she must have new clothes, and of course her old ones would make over for Mag, or for that matter do without making over. What did it matter if they were a little too long in the skirts and sleeves, and a trifle loose about the waist? She would soon grow to them. So Mag was always trying to grow to clothes somewhat too large for her, and never accomplishing it. For the rest, she was a brown-haired, brown-eyed girl, too thin to look pretty, and with eyes too large for her face, so the few said who noticed her at all. Do not imagine that Mag Jessup was an object of pity. Her clothes were always decently clean and whole. Mrs. Perkins wanted no shabby-looking folks about her. They were comfortable, too, so far as warmth was concerned. She had also wholesome food to eat, and enough of it. Mrs. Perkins starved nobody. To be sure, she locked away the cake and the sweetmeats, at least the choice ones, before it was time for Mag to eat, but she did that for the other servants as well as for Mag. One couldn't expect a woman who made her living by keeping boarders to feed her servants on the same that she did people who paid $8 and $10 and $12 a week. Besides, everybody knows that cake and sweetmeats are not the best food for a pale-faced, growing girl. It is true that it was often said to Mag about her supper time, "Here, child, take a bite and then run to the corner with this note," or "To the grocery with this order," or "To the drug store with this prescription. You can eat as you run." Nevertheless, Mag rarely went hungry, and was not often cold, except when she went to bed at night and got up in the morning. There was no means of warming the little fifth-story hall closet that held her cot. But there were clothes enough on her bed, when she was fairly under them, to stop the shivers after a while. And so, in this, as in all other respects, Mag Jessup was a great deal better off than hundreds and thousands of children in the streets of great cities. Nobody was unkind to her, or meant to be. It is true they kept her busy from Monday morning until Monday morning again. They sent her toiling up 3 long flights of stairs after a pin, or a newspaper, as carelessly as they would have sent a monkey or a kitten. Nobody ever seemed to remember that she might be tired or sleepy, or busy about something important. What else could be expected? Was she not there to earn her living by doing errands, and odds and ends? I had almost said that nobody scolded her, but that would have been a mistake. Norah, the cook, scolded everybody that she dared. It seemed to be a part of her work. One would almost have supposed that her excellent pies, and delicious puddings, and delicate cake had to have sharp cutting words for flavoring, so regularly were they used in the making. And who so convenient for scolding as Mag, whose duty it was to be on hand when she summoned her, and to do her bidding? Then there was Mrs. Perkins, with a large family on her hands, and some of them very trying people, and 100 burdens of which others knew nothing. What more natural than that she should sometimes grow nervous, and scold right and left? She could not scold Norah, for she would have given warning, and the head waiter was Norah's cousin, and the chambermaid her friend. Of course it would not do to blame them, whatever went wrong. It was really a necessity to vent her nerves on Mag. It is also undeniable that Miss Annie Perkins was sometimes in ill humor, and Miss Kate had many school irritations, and both of them had a habit of calling Mag a lazy little thing, or a horrid poke, or a careless dunce, whenever anything went wrong. But, despite these, and 100 other drawbacks, Mag Jessup had much to be thankful for. Mrs. Perkins often told her so. Many were the children who went hungry to bed, who, in fact, had no beds to go to. They had drunken fathers and cruel mothers who knocked them down, and kicked them, and turned them out in the cold. She should think of them and be grateful. Mag was grateful, in a way, and patient and painstaking, and always in doubt as to whether or not she earned enough to pay for her board and clothes, and whether, as she grew older and would have to eat more, Mrs. Perkins could possibly afford to keep her. It was drawing near Christmas time. The boarders at Mrs. Perkins's house talked incessantly, when they met, about the handkerchief cases and photograph frames and pin trays and perfume bags and what not that they were making or buying for Christmas gifts. Mag had to leave her knives or her duster 20 times in a day to run to the fancy counter of the great cheap store, to match floss or get a spool of pink silk or another square of canvas. From morning until night she heard nothing but snatches of Christmas talk. The kitchen was full of it. Norah was " doing " a wonderful bit of crazy work that was to decorate her cousin's best room sofa, and the chambermaid told her that she had been saving up money for 3 months to buy an elegant present for her mother. Mag listened to it all in respectful silence. She had no money to save up, and no mother to save it for, and she never had had a Christmas present in her life. 13 years old, and never a Christmas gift! You can scarcely believe that, but it is true. She did not go to Sunday school. The Perkins boarders liked their Sunday dinner at just about the hour for Sunday school, and Mag could not be spared. She had gone when she was younger, a few Sundays, but had always, either on account of clothes, or illness, or carelessness, dropped out so long before Christmas time that none of the gifts had sought her out. She wondered how it would seem to wake up in the morning and find a gift under her pillow or on the stool beside her cot. She could not think how it would seem, but she laughed aloud over the idea. " Fiddlesticks !" said Mr. Frederick Ainsworth, looking at the open package in his lap in great disdain. " It isn't in the least what I thought it was from the advertisement; not so large nor so nicely bound. It is nothing but paper covers. That won't do for Margaret. It is babyish besides. I might have known from the title, ' Little Pillows.' Whatever possessed me to tell Ned to get it for me? How came I to forget Margaret, I wonder, when I was buying the other things? This won't do, anyhow. I must skip out this very evening and get something more suited to Miss Margaret. She would toss her yellow curls in disdain over a gift like this. I wonder what I will do with the thing?" " Mr. Frederick," said a quiet little voice at his elbow, " here is a note I was to give you as soon as you came in." " All right, Mag, pass it over." As he drew the neat little note from the envelope he caught a glimpse of Mag's large brown eyes and grave face, and said to himself, " What a serious faced little mouse that is. I wonder if she ever laughs. She looks as though she did not know that Christmas was only 3 days off. Halloo! Why shouldn't I give the Little Pillows to her? She wouldn't mind the paper cover. That's the very thing I'll do. Just so, my respected uncle. I shall be happy to eat my Christmas dinner with you, since I can't eat it at home. Seems to me your invitation is awfully late, but never mind. Better late than never. Now I must skip out and get Margaret something fine, certainly." Frederick Ainsworth, or Ainsworth as the boys in school called him, or Mr. Frederick, as Mag had been instructed to say, was one of Mrs. Perkins's boarders for the season. His father and mother lived in town, but had gone to Europe for a year, in search of health for the father; so the town house was closed, his sister was away at boarding school, and he, being in his last year in high school, had been sent to Mrs. Perkins's as the most convenient boarding house. A merry, happy hearted young fellow of 15 was Frederick Ainsworth. A boy who worked hard in school and on the ball ground, or, in fact, wherever else he was. A clean, wholesome, genial boy, who had hosts of friends, and missed his mother so much that he covered his face with the bedclothes every night to hide the tears that would start at the thought of her. But he told himself cheerily every morning that father would be sure to get better fast, now that he was away from that horrid, confining business, and had mother with him all day long. Next year this time they would all be at home again, and as jolly as ever. Frederick had only been a member of Mrs. Perkins's family since the fall term opened, and knew very little of Mag, save that she was always careful to dust his room neatly, and would run to the post box with a letter quicker than he could do it himself. No thought of making her a present had entered his mind until he wondered what to do with the book called " Little Pillows " that he had made a mistake in getting for his pretty cousin, Margaret. This was just the way it came to pass that Mag Jessup had a Christmas present. If she lives to be 100, she will never forget the excitement of that bitterly cold Christmas morning in which she sat up suddenly, rubbed her eyes to make sure that she was awake, then sprang out of bed, her face aglow with more than the cold air, and seized upon a package that lay on her stool. A package done up neatly in white paper, tied with a pink cord, and saying on its outside, "Merry Christmas to Mag, from F. F. A." A book! Actually a whole clean book! Both covers on it, and a picture of green leaves and red berries on one side. And it was for her! She had a Christmas gift! I am afraid you will almost want to cry when you hear it, but this was Mag Jessup's first book. Not even a first reader of her very own had she ever possessed. Was there ever anything anywhere in the world so dear and precious? She hugged it, she kissed it, she wanted to cry over it, but sharply chid back the tears lest they should fall on the precious cover. "Mag," called a firm voice at the foot of the second flight of stairs, "hurry up, there are 20 errands waiting to be done. You can't sleep all day if it is Christmas. Merry Christmas, Mr. Jones." It was the same voice in a different key, the chambermaid's voice, wishing Mr. Jones, the porter, a Merry Christmas. Ah, somebody had wished her the same. Merry Christmas to Mag! Those were the very words. No Christmas chimes would ever sound sweeter. She had not the slightest idea who F. F. A. was. By and by, when she had time to think, she would try the names of all the boarders and see if they would fit. Now she must hurry into her clothes and run to do those 20 errands. Chapter 2